So all the people who watch this channel who are into Chevys, today is your day. Guess what? We're doing a Chevy. Stay tuned. So this place probably doesn't look familiar to you folks, but in one of my very early videos, I was actually in this same building with my buddy Joe Davis, breaking in an L82 Corvette engine on a wooden engine stand that we made from a engine, what was it, a crate for a diesel?
Yeah.
Yeah. And go through all of that rigmarole before we put it in the car, because I don't know how many people of you have done this, but putting this inside of a vet can be kind of challenging, and so that's not something you want to get good at, is taking a motor in and out. My buddy Joe Davis, you've met him before. He's my Still in Motion buddy. We always go every year, and we are working on this cream puff. Check this out. I mean, this scene right here looks like it's straight from 1967 right here, buddy. And that's what it's about. So, to give you a little insider on what's going on here. He's had issues with cylinder blocks, living that 400 small block life, and getting some cracks in between the steam holes and the cylinder bolt holes. Let's take a look and I'll show you what I'm talking about. So this is a 400 small block, and notice you've got the steam holes here, which you don't have on a traditional 350, but this block has been magnaflux, and you can see the crack there, and what happens is it distorts the cylinder wall in this area. You can feel it with your finger, and that's been a problem that he's been having for quite some time. How many blocks have you went through, Joe? 3. So we found this, what did you call this thing a while ago? The Georgia Bandit. We're over here today. I brought my mics and stuff, and we're getting ready to put this thing together. And I'm going to show you some of the little tips and tricks that I do when I put an engine together. This stuff here applies to any engine. I don't care if it's Ford, Mopar, Chevrolet. The basis is all the same. There's really 2 types of people in the world. Those who want you to hear them coming a mile away and have everything polished and spiffy and be the baddest guy on the block. And then you have the Joe Davises of the world who want to walk softly and carry a big stick. Ain't that right?
That's right.
I mean, this thing right here, look, I'm going to be honest. If there was one Chevrolet that I would own, I've said this before, it would be this car. This is like a day 2 example of what it would really be like in 1967. He likes the sleeper look. Now, don't let him fool you. I call this joker Warren Johnson at work. He calls me Bob Glidden. It's just our way of picking around, but this car's already been mid-7s. And that was with the old combination. So got some new stuff that we're putting in this thing. It should be quite interesting. The thing that I love about this car, and why I call it the ultimate sleeper, yeah, the AC still works, still has power brakes, and that right there, overdrive transmission. It's got a 700 R4 that's built by Tony Miller. Miller's Transmissions down here, local to us. and that little tiny converter. So I'm gonna get started. You know, like everything else, man, there's always hiccups. I forgot my degree wheel. He forgot his torque wrench. So I've got to go to the house and get that stuff so I can even do anything. So we're going to have a brief intermission. Well, 1 hour later, here I am. Man, I even had to change the shirt. I was sitting there thinking, man, I'm wearing a Ford shirt working on a Chevrolet. That ain't cool, is it, Joe?
It works for me. I'm just glad you're here.
Yeah. So he's torquing down the caps, and while he's doing that, I'm going to talk a little bit about what we got going on here. So I brought my dial bore gauge, my mics. You can see all my stuff over here. So we're getting ready to measure the bearing clearances, and this is, I've done mic the crank. Now this is a, you can tell good machine work when you see it and you measure it out, because as I measure this, all the measurements come out exactly the same. My buddy Eric up at M&E Engine Services up in Shelby did all that. And yeah, let's fast forward a little bit. We done took the measurements here, and next thing to do is zero out the dial bore gauge to the mic itself. They got these little fancy mic holders that'll hold it while you do it. I put it down flat, put it in there. It ain't gonna work like that. Yeah, there it is. You can come around here, Joe, and see the gauge and see it zeroed out. I need to move it just a little bit. But anyways, you get the idea. So when I put this into that hole there, it will show the actual bearing clearance. This ain't good. Are these standard bearings or 10?
10.
Let's measure the backside. Well, this is first problem we run into. All right. Take a look at this measurement, Joe. You see that?
Yep.
So that's 5, 6 and a half. You see that? That's not good. So Joe just said this, I didn't. He said 4 eyes is better than 2 eyes. So what he did was he put the cap on backwards. We're just doing this to see if you were paying attention, because the arrow was facing back, and so that's why we got that funky reading. So it looks like we're around 3. Yeah, that's exactly 3. So let's go check this one in the same spot. And it's normal to have a little variance between them. A lot of people will say, oh, yeah, it's exactly the same. Well, see, that's right at 3. You're going to be a few tenths off. One thing that I'm pretty adamant about is if the bearing clearances are loose, no one will ever know. If they're too tight, everybody's going to know it, because your junk's going to be laying on the ground in pieces. I always try to shoot for 1/1000 per inch of journal. So we're at 2.68. Ideally, you'd want that to be about 2.6, but this being at 3 is going to run good, not going to have any kind of problems, and so we can march on. So you might have noticed that you see me taking measurements this way and that way. The reason why I do that is because when the cap goes down, I'm checking it for distortion. Because if I just go off of one reading, it might be perfectly okay there. But if I go somewhere else and check it multiple spots and I come up with the same number, that tells me we're good to go. So we're getting ready to take all this back apart, drop the crank in it, and then we'll move on to the rods. What you doing there, Joe?
Well, we're definitely going to use the offset configuration here. A lot of people have different thoughts about it, but this has always worked for me in the past, so this is what we're going to do, right?
Yep, that's what I do. Make sure that lip is facing the right way. A lot of people make that mistake too, don't they?
Yeah, I think so. You know, I've learned the hard way on that, but it's like Andy's saying, you know, a lot of people set these up different ways. Some do flush with the block and it works for them, and by no means am I saying, you know, this is the best or you should do it like this, but it works for me, right?
Well, Joe just finished up torquing up the main caps. Everything is good to go. We did check in play already. Yours truly forgot to turn the camera on. But so that's good. Now we're going to move on to connecting rods and all that fun stuff. Now that the crank is in, now we're measuring for rod bearing clearance. Got it set up, mic'd, all that good stuff. And right now we're hovering around 3 thousandths. You know, I would like to see it a little bit tighter, but 3 thousandths, 3 and 3 is normally a good number. So this thing is going to be ready to rock here soon. We're moving on to putting rings on the pistons. One of the things that this particular combination has is a support ring for the oil ring here, where the piston pin goes up in there. That's just one of those necessary evils. But the reason why I'm videoing this particular part is, if you can see right here, this is why it's always good to inspect your parts. There is a little nick right there. Putting the ring in it, the ring would not go in that part of the groove. And if you would have just put this together without paying attention to that, you'd have had a stuck ring. How did I fix it? A little Bondo scrape, some sandpaper. I know it's real primitive, but it worked. And then I went back and finished it up with 2000 grit. I think this was 280. But it's always in the details. One of the things that we wanted to do before we called it a day is measure our deck height, so that Joe knows what head gaskets to get, what thickness. And how you go about doing this, you come here, you zero, you gauge, and then you come here, rotate it back and forth. I've done moved it because I was getting ready to take it apart. Then Joe reminded me, hey, we might want to video that. So that gives you an idea. This piston, as we measured it, was 6 thousandths in the hole. So he's going to get some 39 thousandths gaskets, give us quench of 45 thousandths, and this is going to be a pretty strong runner. Well, folks, we're going to call it a day. We got a lot of stuff knocked out, but we're going to come back when we got a real ring compressor instead of Betsy. Where's Betsy at? You done put her up?
Right.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Yeah, that's Betsy. Joe knows the real story behind Betsy now. But anyways.
Yeah.
But that's pretty much it. I hope you learned a little bit. Yeah.
I learned a lot.
You hear that? Yeah, what not to do, like torque wrench, me forget the degree wheel, which we didn't use. But anyways, we're going to get back on this Chevelle. You'll see more of it, and I'm sure you'll see it in action. So until next time, this is Joe. This is Andy from Unity Motorsports Garage.
Thank you.
Catch you later.